election coverage continues with two races in the State House. Voters in District 20 in East Honolulu and District 29 in Kalihi will be electing first-time representatives. With shakeups already happening in the State House, what kind of changes will these political newcomers want to bring to the legislature? Hear from the four candidates and send in your questions. Tonight's live broadcast and live stream of Insights on PBS Hawaii start now.
Aloha and welcome to Insights on PBS Hawaii. I'm Lauren Day. After nearly 3 decades as a state lawmaker, Representative Bert Kobayashi announced his retirement at the end of his term in November. Our first featured race tonight that we are talking about is his District 20 seat, which represents Leahi, Kahala, Waialae, Kaimuki, and Kapahulu. We look forward to your participation in tonight's show. You can email or call in your questions, and as a reminder, you'll find a live stream of this program at pbshawaii.org and on the PBS Hawaii YouTube page. Now to our guests in studio, the candidates for State House District 20. Democrat Tina Grandinetti was born and raised on Oahu. She has a bachelor's and master's degree in political science and a PhD in urban research. She's taught political science classes at UH Manoa and at Roosevelt High School. And Republican candidate Corrine Solomon is a longtime Hawaii resident with a doctoral degree in pharmacology. She worked at several Oahu hospitals before retiring. She lives in a multi-generational home and enjoys gardening. You know, of the two of you, whoever gets elected will be a political newcomer. So I want to hear why the two of you decided to run for office. Corrine, I'll start with you. As you know, no surprise, here in Hawaii, it can be a challenge sometimes for Republicans to get elected. So what made you want to run?
Well, you know, I never thought I would run, but you can't just sit around and grumble, so you got to do something. So I thought, well, if not somebody else, then who? Me, and if not now, then when? So I bit the bullet and I submitted my nomination papers, and we'll see what happens. We'll see if our district is ready to elect a Republican.
What are some of those issues that made you want to run when you said you can't just sit there and watch things happen?
The high taxes, people struggling to find housing, people moving away, you know, more Native Hawaiians on the continent than we have here at home. My husband's a physician, so watching him struggle for decades trying to recruit for the practice where people don't want to come and work here because of the cost of living and all the regulations. Mm-hmm. So, and you know, hearing him grumble too. So I thought I should do something.
Tina, we had you on the Insights show not too long ago. You won a very crowded primary race. Why are you running for the seat?
I'm really running because I want to help build a future where working families can afford to live in Hawaii. I grew up here on Oahu, and so many of my friends and family have moved away. I want to start a family myself, and you know, I know that it's going to be a real struggle. And so I want to, build a future where we can afford to raise our keiki here and teach them to take care of this place a little better than we've been doing.
Mm-hmm. Both of you mentioned the high cost of living. Obviously, we'll dive into that in just a bit, but what are some other issues that the two of you feel are most pressing for your district specifically? So either of you can jump in.
Sure. We have a lot of elderly, a lot of kupuna. I think we really need to focus on improving access to kupuna care. We do have a homeless issue, especially around Diamond Head, that we need to laser focus on helping the homeless. And the cost of living, I think, though, addressing that will help with so many other things. You know, recruiting and keeping teachers, increasing the recruitment goals for the police department, getting the elder care that we need. So I think cost of living is the biggest, but everything else can trickle down from there.
Tina, any other issues that you think are facing your district that you want to add?
From canvassing my community, I think for sure housing and homelessness is probably the biggest issue that most people bring up. I think the one thing I would add, in addition to everything Corrine said, was when I talk to young people in my district, and I ask them about the issues that they care about, they immediately bring up the environment. They bring up their concerns about our climate and their access to fresh water and clean air.
So on that topic, what are your ideas to tackle that issue?
I think we need some really big systems change in thinking about transportation and walkability in our district, and also the ways that we take care of our beaches and how we manage the impacts that we're already feeling from climate change. I think one other thing I would add is doing a better job of holding bad actors accountable. I was involved in the struggle to shut down Red Hill, and we know that we have a history of contamination and poor management that we can really do a lot to improve on.
Mm-hmm. I want to dive into the issue that both of you brought up. Obviously, the high cost of living. I think that's probably, if you talk to anyone here in the islands, probably that's what they're going to say is their number one issue that's facing everybody. Realistically, though, what do the two of you think the state legislature can do to tackle the issue of the cost of living here in Hawaii? Karine, I'll start with you.
Sure. Well, it's a multifaceted approach, and it involves the state legislature, it involves the counties, county council, and also what we can do on the federal level. So I think we all have to work collectively and come up with a plan. I think one thing that we can do is we need to keep peeling back the GET, and I think we should remove the GET, the tax on groceries. I think we need to get rid of that. At the federal level, I think we need to repeal the Jones Act, so I fully support that. The Jones Act is the maritime shipping law where only American ships can be used to bring goods into Hawaii, and it's been estimated that that can add up to about 30% to the cost of building and construction, getting in supplies. So that's something that can be done at the federal level. And then a lot of our constituents' concerns are actually county council issues, permitting, zoning, things like that. So I think it's also just bringing awareness to the constituents, which department does what, and seeing how we can help educate them on getting their concerns addressed.
Tina, do you agree with Karine's approach? Is there anything different, perhaps, that you would do to address the issue?
Yeah, so I think that some of the biggest day-to-day expenses for people are the cost of housing. I think we can do a much better job of addressing that crisis by implementing measures to prevent speculation and foreign and outside investment in our housing market, increasing protections for tenants, thinking through common sense measures like rent stabilization that other folks are looking at across the country. Food is another big issue, and the cost of groceries continues to rise. I think the best way that we can address that is by making long-term investments in local agriculture. And then in terms of taxes, I support putting money in the hands of working people, but I also support thinking holistically about tax fairness and making sure that folks who are doing really, really well are paying their fair share, and folks who are struggling are feeling supported in accessing the care that they need to take care of their own keiki and kupuna.
Mm-hmm. Kind of related to the same topic, Lisa, one of our viewers from Waikiki, is asking, Kahala and Diamond Head have some of the most expensive homes with a lot of out-of-state buyers. Should non-resident homeowners be taxed more? There's a big conversation around whether requirements around residency are legal, and I think we should have a continual and very intentional conversation about that. But I can say right off the bat that I think that homes that are being treated as an investment rather than as homes, as shelter, should be taxed at a higher rate to prevent people from speculating in the housing market and pricing out local people. In Kahala, it is one of the wealthiest neighborhoods, but when I door knocked there, I talked to people who have lived in their home for 60 years and really were hurting, thinking about the ways that when they raised their kids, their street was filled with families, and now they have no neighbors. Multiple people talked to me about that kind of experience, and that really shows that if we're not shaping our housing market and our housing policies to center the needs of working families, soon our neighborhoods are going to look completely different. They're going to be vehicles for investment, not real communities. I'm curious, Karine, your experience door knocking, talking to your neighbors and the folks in your constituents. Have they said that is also a concern to them?
They haven't said in particular that they would support that bill, and I've looked at that bill, and I think we do need to do something, but I think to implement it would be very difficult and challenging. The paperwork involved, sending out surveys to all of these homeowners and trying to follow up and prove who has an empty home and who doesn't. So I think it would be quite challenging to implement that. And then I just wanted to ask with Tina, she mentioned paying their fair share. So my husband and I live in Kahala, so we are in the wealthier district, but my husband works about 80 hours a week, and we pay 47% in taxes. So we give a lot back to the community in our taxes. And I'm just wondering if is that not enough, or is that not a fair share? So
I'm not sure about your personal family finances, but I know that, you know, our legislature recently passed, you know, a measure that restructured our income tax, and it gave roughly working families, low-income families could expect to see about a $300 tax break, whereas wealthier families could reliably expect to see around $6,000. And so those are the kinds of choices that I think we need to be really clear about when we're talking about who sees those kinds of benefits and who really needs the relief. Can I just add one more thing to the question of preventing foreign speculation in our housing market? I definitely think there's questions of legality, but I think there are ways that we can carve out smaller parts of our market specifically for local people. So in places like Colorado, they've implemented deed restriction programs where homeowners can voluntarily put a deed restriction on their home saying that it'll be used only for the local workforce. Or they could put a deed restriction related to affordability. And in return, the city pays a portion of their home's value. And so that creates a pool of permanently affordable housing that is accessible only to the local market. So those are things we could do on a smaller scale to see some of those same impacts today.
I do want to move to the issue of homelessness. Corinne, you brought that up as a topic that a lot of folks in your neighborhood are concerned about. And coincidentally, we got a couple of viewer questions. Mike from Manoa is asking on the same topic, what are you going to do to address the homeless problem in the Diamond Head area? Corinne, I'll start with you.
Well, this is probably not a very politically correct thing to say, but I think we do need to focus on our own. I think we need to really strengthen the program where we send back homeless people back to their home state, their home communities, work out a relationship with the social workers there. That way we can really focus on the people that are homeless in Hawaii and give them the help that they need. And I think we need to increase funding for mental health care. I think that's a big part of it.
Tina, what about for you?
For me, I think it's a two-part issue. There is addressing the folks that are already on the streets, focusing on providing care, providing housing first solutions, and then addressing their behavioral and medical needs. And so I'm really excited about the Leahi Behavioral and Medical Respite Center that was recently opened in our district, and I think we can continue to invest in solutions like that. And then there's the question of prevention, and I think that's very much tied in with bigger questions around preventing displacement for low-income homeowners and the 48% of Hawaii households who rent. Right now, if you rent, you could have lived somewhere for 20 years, and your landlord can tell you within 45 days that you have to move. And we know that the reality of our housing market now is that if you're working 2 jobs and you need to go look for a new unit, there are very few options, and that creates, a spiral effect where you're either living with family or in your car or on the streets.
Mm-hmm. Corinne, you mentioned we need more resources for mental health for our homeless population. Do you feel that the state of Hawaii has enough resources out there for our current homeless population?
No, I don't think so. But I think if we can lower the cost of living, I think we can entice more people to go into educational programs to help in the mental health arena. And I think there's bills we can pass too. A few years ago, I used to instruct psychologists on medications. I'm a pharmacist, so I used to give a course on helping them understand medications and interactions, things like that, because there's always a bill that comes up and then it dies to give prescription licensing authority to psychologists, and I think that's one way that we can help expand the pool of mental health resources.
Mm-hmm. I know we're talking about what issues are important to the two of you. If elected, what are the top 3 that you want to tackle, and how do you plan?
Tina mentioned agriculture, and that it really is a passion of mine. Not something that comes up a lot in the district, but I think it is a way to help us be more sustainable and help use our local agriculture to feed our people instead of importing from the mainland. Cost of living is another really big one. And I think actually Tina and I have a lot in common where I'm very interested in transparency, government reform, and accountability at the legislature. So I think there's a lot that can be done to reform internally how things work at the legislature to make it more transparent, more open, and see some reforms.
I think you can tell for me, housing is my big passion area. I work in housing policy now at a National Policy Institute, and I'm really excited about bringing in some fresh ideas that are, being tested and proven to have successes in other places, specifically around preventing speculation, protecting low-income homeowners and renters, and producing a pool of permanently affordable housing. Aside from that, sustainable local food system is a big passion of mine. I worked for Representative Amy Peruso, who at the time was the Vice Chair of Agriculture, and I think that there's so much work we can do to support not just industrial agriculture. Right now we've given away so many of our lands to seed industries. We can instead support local farmers who are going to produce local food for local people. And I think I'm just going to echo what she said. I really am invested in government accountability. I want every member in the House to have a meaningful voice so that their constituents can feel meaningfully represented.
Mm-hmm. I think it's so great to hear the top issues for all the candidates, just because there's so many ideas, there's so many issues facing Hawaii and what people want to tackle, but it's realistically what are the top priorities that you are going to tackle once elected. Speaking about government accountability, of the two of you, whoever's elected is going to be a political newcomer, as I said at the top of the show. What are you going to do to make your voice heard, amongst other representatives who are experienced and have been there much longer?
Well, I think for me it would be a lot easier since there's only a handful of Republicans. So it's easy to kind of get together with them and talk and work things out. And then I'm also interested in developing relationships across the board, though, because we do all have to work together. And I think it's important to connect with people in a casual, friendly relationship first before you go, head first into talking about policy and decisions and legislation.
Tina, does that make you nervous going into, being a freshman newcomer representative if elected?
I think that one thing about campaigning is it gives you a little bit more respect for our elected officials to really know how much work they put in to get to where they are and to represent their communities. So similarly, I think my first priority is going to be to go in and build relationships and hear from legislators about how they feel they're serving their constituents and the needs of their districts, because we're all different, but we live on an island, we have a collective interest in making this place better. However, I would also like to see some real changes and structural reforms around things like how bills are brought up for hearing, and I really want to see things like clean elections and an end to pay-to-play donations, so that not just people within the building, but hopefuls can feel like they have a real chance at bringing in new ideas to the legislature.
Mm-hmm. We have two other viewer questions that I do want to get to. Carol from Honolulu is asking, what are you planning to do about fixing the sidewalks in the district? And maybe if the two of you have experience talking to constituents, is that a concern that comes up from people that you've talked to?
Part of it is educating our community on, jurisdiction issues, like when is it a city issue, but also the fact that we as House representatives are our constituents' most intimate relationship in the government. We have the smallest districts. That means we can go knock on almost every door in our district if we really wanted to and get to know people. That also means that even though most sidewalks are a city issue, we have a responsibility to advocate for our constituents with our city council, our counterpart in the city council. So that's sort of first step, is sitting down with our council members and building a relationship with them as well. And then I also think there are lots of things we can do as state legislators to advocate for things like safe routes to school and work with our city on Complete Streets projects. Our district should be one of the most walkable on the island, but there are issues of safety around our sidewalks, or a complete lack of sidewalks on some streets. And people, even though they live close enough to send their kids to school, or send their kids walking to school, don't feel safe doing that. And that's something I would work really hard to change.
Karine, I saw you nodding your head. Do you feel that your community is walkable and also safe?
Yeah, so to the viewer's question, I have to say I had my baby about 10 years ago, and I had this stroller. I was going to go walking everywhere, and I went down 22nd Avenue, and there's no sidewalk, and it was so bumpy just to try and get to Kilauea Park that I ended up buying like a four-wheeling kind of stroller so that I could handle it. So that's a big pet peeve of mine. But again, like Tina said, it's a city issue, and I think it does need to be addressed because there's a lot of areas in our district that really need sidewalks.
Tim from Kaimuki wants to know, does either one of the candidates support getting rid of the GET tax?
I support getting rid of it for really essential items like groceries. I think that that's something that's been brought up, from both parties, and like our governor, at least in part, campaigned on things like that. And I feel like we should have a meaningful conversation around how the GET tax is the thing that makes our tax system as a whole regressive to working people. Yeah.
So I am for eliminating it completely. However, it does provide about 50% of our operating budget for the government. So I think we need to chip away at it little by little and then see how we can balance on the other end until we can eventually hopefully get to a point where it's completely eliminated.
I want to turn to the topic of education. How do the two of you feel about the schools in your district and what can be done in Hawaii to improve our Hawaii public schools?
I'm a public school grad, so that issue is really close to my heart. And I think the number one most important thing we can do to improve our schools is to address our teacher shortage by paying teachers what they deserve and treating them as professionals. I think 60,000 students every year are taught by a certified teacher or qualified teacher in Hawaii, and that's an injustice to our teachers as well because many of them are working as emergency hires. And I think that the only way we can meaningfully address that problem is by putting our money where our mouth is. Yeah.
Karine, what about you? How do you feel about Hawaii public schools and what we can do to improve it?
Sure. So in our district, we're really lucky. All of our schools are very well rated. My daughter's at Waikiki Elementary, and it's just been such a blessing for her. During Zoom, when I had her at home for first grade and I had to see what the teachers were dealing with, I thought, these people need to be making $200,000 a year. They are so underpaid. So I am 100% for funding our teachers better. That will, help with recruitment and keeping them around. And then again, if we lower the cost of living, it'll make it easier for them to stay in the teaching field rather than giving up, which is what so many of them do. They give up teaching and they go do something more lucrative because they just can't make ends meet.
What do you think would be a fair wage? I know obviously in a dream world, we'd probably give our teachers $1 million if we could.
I can't come up with a number off the bat, but I know it's got to be a lot more than what they're making now. And then things like the recent snafu with the payroll that happened, things like that need to just not be happening too. When they're on that tiny salary, especially for the ones starting out, they don't have that nest egg that they can dip into when the paychecks are delayed like that. So that was really heartbreaking to hear that.
I don't think there's anyone who would disagree with the fact that our Hawaii teachers are underpaid and deserve much more. When it comes to the two of you, for your personal experience and expertise, what do you think makes you the best candidate for the job?
Sure. I'm really proud that I bring kind of a multifaceted background with me. I'm a community organizer. I was involved in the struggle to shut down Red Hill. I'm a dues-paying member of the Honolulu Tenants Union and helped organize tenants who were getting evicted at Kapiolani Village Apartments to make way for Ku'ilei Place. I also have legislative experience. I was the chief of staff for Representative Amy Peruso, who represents Wahiawa. And I took a really active role in working with community advocates to craft bills that really, I think, amplified their voice. And then I have policy expertise. I have a PhD in urban studies and have focused my career on our housing crisis and currently work at a national policy institute.
And Karine, for you, why should your neighbors, your community members elect you?
So I do have a background in pharmacy. I was a clinical pharmacist. I worked inside the hospital, and I was luckily, the timing was right. I was at several hospitals where we had to institute new programs or new pharmacy services. So I have a lot of experience going through practice standards and creating policies that are specific to that hospital or that program. Pharmacists are very detail-oriented. I like to really just dig in and read and learn as much as I can about something when it's put in front of me. And we've never had a pharmacist in the legislature. I think it might be kind of cool.
Yeah. I also want to ask, we just have a couple more minutes with the two of you, about term limits. Do you support term limits for state lawmakers?
So I think we should have 12 years in either chamber or a combined 16-year term limit. I think term limits are important because I think this job should be something where you're a public servant representing your community. You're not there for a lifelong career. And I think it's one way to curb the corruption and the pay-to-play that just can sometimes naturally come with being in a position for that long. And we have term limits for everything else. We might as well have them for the legislature too.
Tina, how do you feel about term limits?
I support reasonable term limits that take into account the fact that it takes a while to learn how to do this job well. But I also support other reforms because I think it's not just a question of making sure that people don't stay in too long and accumulate too much power, but also making sure that a diverse pool of potential candidates always feel able to challenge our legislature and hold our legislators accountable. So that means ending pay-to-play donations, getting money out of politics, and supporting clean elections.
Mm-hmm. Kind of related on that topic, both of you tonight talked about transparency being really important to the two of you. Really quickly, how do you plan on being transparent with your constituents?
I want to hear from them. I want to be, this is pretty much a glorified customer service role. So you have to listen to them. You have to understand where they're coming from, be in their shoes, respect what they want you to do with the legislature, and then follow up with them. I would envision having newsletters and having town halls and just always having an open ear and to what's going on in the community.
And Tina, just in a few seconds, if you don't mind, how would you be transparent with your constituents?
I hope that I've already started. My mailers were long and kind of extensive and really honest about my policy approach, which was informed by my conversations with my constituents. But I think, that's just the beginning of an ongoing conversation, a reciprocal conversation between me and my community.
Well, thank you both so much for being here tonight. I also want to thank our viewers, of course, our guests in studio, the candidates for State House District 20, Republican Corrine Solomon and Democrat Tina Grandinetti. As we get ready for our next featured race, State House District 29, please enjoy this Hikino story from Waikiki Elementary School.
It sure is difficult when you work so hard to create something special and it all gets taken from you in the blink of an eye. My name is Layla Lawrence, and I'm a 4th grader at Waikiki Elementary School. This is a story about me learning to take risks. I really like a game called Gods of Gravity. It's a virtual reality game where you try to build your own civilization and protect it from the enemy. At the same time, you need to send your ships out to destroy the enemy planets. The catch is, those same ships also serve as your planet's protection. So, you have to take a risk. Putting your ships out there leaves you vulnerable. In some ways, it's like the risk we take when we make friends. You have to put yourself out there. That can make you feel anxious and vulnerable. And you know what? Sometimes it doesn't work out. In 2nd grade, I had a friend. We were super close. But at the start of 3rd grade, she started to ignore me. The problem was, I still really wanted to be her friend. I didn't understand what had changed. This left me feeling confused and alone. I felt like our time together and memories with her had become meaningless. It actually took the entire school year to recover, and when I think about it, one thing that helped me start making new friends was playing Gods of Gravity. Gods of Gravity allows you to connect with other people who are playing online at the same time. I decided to put myself out there and make new friends virtually, just by being a good sport and having a fun time. It was my first time making friends from all over the world. Now I have made new, lasting friends from New Zealand, Australia, and Canada. Playing online has also made me more open to reaching out to make new friends at school. If you take a big risk, it can be a big change, but it does not have to be a big loss. I've learned that even if you lose the game, or a friend, or things change, that doesn't have to make what you experience less valuable. As a matter of fact, it makes it more valuable. I now believe that taking risk is always worth it. All experiences, both good and bad, help us see who we really are.
And welcome back. That was a story from our Waikiki Elementary School. Some great insights from them. Now to our race for State House District 29, which represents constituents in Kamehameha Heights, Kalihi Valley, and portions of Kalihi. In studio tonight, we have Democrat Ikaika Hussey, is a graduate of Iolani School and has a master's degree in political science from the University of Hawaii at Manoa. He's the vice president of development for Shake Energy Collaborative and lives in Kalihi with his wife and 3 children. Republican candidate Carol Ka'apu is a graduate of Kamehameha Schools and attended UH Hilo and Drexel University. She is the director of operations at Kalihi Union Church and has served overseas as a missionary in Japan, China, Thailand, and India. Neither of you, tonight's show, all political newcomers if elected, neither of you have held office before. So I want to hear why the two of you are running. Carol, I'll start with you.
Well, I've been part of the legislative process for a long time, worked in the House for 8 sessions, and I've seen the impact that legislation has on my neighbors, on me, on our community. And there needs to be a change in the way that legislation is evaluated as how it impacts our community. And so I'd love to be that voice to speak up for the people in my community.
Ikaika, why run for office?
Well, I actually wasn't planning to run, but I was asked to run by some of the community leaders in Kalihi because of the transition from John Mizuno to his spouse May. They wanted to see some changes in political leadership in our community, so they asked me to run. But my personal reason for running for office really comes down to my experience as a father, and wanting to, sort of looking at the future through watching my kids grow up, and being very concerned about the future that awaits them. Things like the affordability crisis, the massive inequality that we're experiencing, both locally and nationally. And then also things like climate change, which are only going to get worse over time. And I think it's part of our job in this generation to do as much as we can now to set our future generations up for success.
Mm-hmm. What do you feel is the most pressing issue facing the Kalihi area?
Oh gosh, there are so many. One of the big ones, though, is simply just resources. Kalihi often is ignored, frankly. And there was a conversation in the previous segment about sidewalks. There, in many parts of Kalihi and in Kapalama, there are no sidewalks, period. And it is a question of resources. There actually was money, I think, 20 or 30 years ago for sidewalks, and we lost that money to another district. And I want to make sure that our community is not ignored, that we're not forgotten. And it's in the context of a broader problem, which is that we actually pay more in property taxes in Kalihi on a per house valuation basis than communities like Kahala. And so I think there's basic issues of equity that are at stake here.
Carol, what about for you? Are there other issues that you would add to that are pressing facing Kalihi?
For me, it's cost of living. And as your previous invitees said, people are leaving. People are working as hard as they can, and in the last couple of years, it's gotten unbearable. Paying $9 for a gallon of milk is just crazy. And without some help, there'll be more people leaving. There'll be more, in our area, there's a lot of multifamily homes because that's the only way you can make ends meet. And there really needs to be change.
I think there's no corner of the state that is not affected by the high cost of living and obviously inflation. It just keeps going up in Hawaii. So on that topic, how would the two of you address the cost of living in Hawaii?
So that's where I think we really disagree. And I don't want to put words into your mouth, Carol, but I know that from my perspective, I I want to make sure that our working families have the resources that they need. So that for me, that means making sure that the programs that they depend on, things like education, healthcare, housing, that those are fully funded, and that we're not in a situation where, like where we might be in a few years based on the tax bill that was just passed, where we have to start deciding which programs to cut. I'm not interested in that. So for me, it's about making sure that we are really taking care of our community.
And for me, it's more of how we use the money that we get. So I'm for the tax cuts. I think that that's a good first step. I think we should remove the GE tax on food and medical. And I think that there should also be like a reform of the GE tax. It makes no sense that we pay multiple times on one thing as it changes hands to get to us. That it just, we pay so much for something that we need. As far as the what Ikaika's mentioned about the budget hole in the future, I don't think that that's so much of a problem, because when you give people back money, they spend it, and it goes back into the cycle of getting taxed. And so I'm not as concerned about this big, huge budget hole. I think that we need to increase our tax, decrease our wasteful spending, and decrease our taxes so that our people in our communities have more resources that they need to care for their families.
This question might give you both of you an opportunity to expand on that, but if elected in the first, couple months, what are the top 3 issues that the two of you would want to address for your district?
Cost of living is one. Crime. And supporting small businesses. I think our state did a real disservice to small businesses during the COVID lockdowns and everything, where Costco could be open, but the mom and pop on the corner had to close. And so a lot of the small family businesses have closed down, especially in the areas where it's just a community store. And small business is where people can grow in their, how do I want to say that, their economic stability. Mm-hmm. Start a business, build a business. That's how you get yourself to a place where you are stable, where you do have the resources you need.
And what specifically would you want to do to help those small businesses?
We regulate things to death in this state, whether it's building. Right? Why does it take a year plus to get a building permit? In the mainland, it's literally, in some places, you walk in and you walk out with it. Why is it so hard to get a building permit? So if I'm a business owner and I want to build or remodel a space so that my business can move in, the time it takes to get that permit is crazy. Now that's on the county level, but the state also has input on that too.
And Ikaika, for you, if elected, what are the top 3 issues that you want to tackle? So
I'm fine with tax cuts. Tax cuts are really important if they really are helping our community. I am, however, really worried about the impact of having to trim, in the out years, up to $1 billion or I've even seen numbers of $1.4 billion out of the state budget. And we know that we are immediately facing a set of really dangerous and serious problems. We have to pay for Lahaina. We have to pay for, we have to figure out what the future of Hawaiian Electric is. And all the climate adaptations, and we still don't have sidewalks. So I don't want us to be in a situation where we have to, cut 8 to 10% out of the state budget. So what I'd like to see us do as soon as possible is to make the 2024 tax cuts revenue neutral. So by adding some tax measures that would not affect working class families, but would affect the billionaire class that has made Hawaii their paradise. Also the large private equity firms, the transnational corporations, for whom Hawaii is a very lucrative investment. And we need to figure out how do we tap into those things.
Mm-hmm. Any other issues that you would want to address as soon as you're elected? Well,
let's see. I'm really interested in how do we solve the housing problem of sort of the loss of our housing stock to external owners. you know, to folks just seeing Hawaii as an investment. And I like the idea of deed restrictions that Tina Grandinetti was just describing. I think that's a really interesting concept. I also think that we should look at tax incentives that make it cheaper and that basically make it a good idea to incentivize local families selling their property to other local families. You know, instead of being sort of seduced by the higher cash values that they can get by selling it to an external investor.
I want to move to the issue, the topic of crime. Carol, you mentioned that safety being a big issue for your constituents. What do you hear when you are door knocking, speaking to your neighbors and constituents? Do they feel safe? I mean, you know, obviously it's no surprise. Kalihi is no stranger to crime, shootings, legal game room issues. What do you think the state legislature can do to tackle that issue?
Yeah. So, you want to take it?
You can start.
In terms of the formal role of the legislature itself and the legislator, there isn't a whole lot. But in our community, which is a pretty small community, it's a very tightly knit area. And what I hear from people going door knocking is that, you know, there's been several shootings at Kalihi Valley Homes. There has been home invasions, and several of these like really horrendous things have happened. People have called the cops, and the cops have not. Essentially have not come through and not being able to make the kind of substantive changes, you know, that makes people feel safe. And so I think part of it is simply working with the police to change the way that they are conducting business within our community, make them work with them to become more responsive. Another idea that Desiree De Soto was talking about on a previous edition of this show was teaming HPD professionals with social workers and mental health professionals, so that the initial, you know, approach is a little bit more holistic and also more long term. You know, like there's an ongoing engagement with a particular problem.
And that exists both in the state and on the county. County's the core program, and the state has that program, but nobody knows about it. It's in statutes. It's there that there is the same idea of the core program where you have law enforcement with wraparound services. But nobody knows about it, and the state side is not doing as much as the Honolulu County side is. But I also think that it's on the legislative side, the judicial side needs to also step up too, right? Multiple offenses and you're right back on the street does not give people a feeling of safety or comfort. And I know a lot of people who don't go out like they used to, especially the kupuna, right? For me, the example that was from the proverbial last straw was when a 7-year-old grandma got mugged going to the dentist at 10 in the afternoon on the corner of Liliha and School. One of the busiest streets, and she was just getting out of her car, going to her dentist, and she got mugged. That should not happen. But there's desperate people, and we do have a lot of the people who are houseless, who are coming up from downtown, that area, and living under the bridges, living around the freeway, that are beginning to migrate into the neighborhood. Because the problem is bad. Homelessness is bad in our state. And because of the economy, because of mental health issues, because of substance abuse, all those things all play together. And it just brings people they're kind of leery. They're kind of scared to, I don't want to go, I don't go out at night. I won't walk there. You know, they don't want to be exposed because they've seen things happen.
Yeah, it's all connected. And I do remember that horrible case when it hit the news. That was, pretty horrific. Okay, you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, and we talk about this every month at our neighborhood board meetings, and we probably do it as well on the other neighborhood board. But to me, a lot of it comes actually down to resources and policy, which is the job of the legislature. You know, a lot of the reason why we have our mental health crisis in our state is because of the deinstitutionalization that happened under Reagan. You know, the Republican Party cut resources all across the country, including here in Hawaii, which has led to this process where there simply aren't the resources to address the problems in our neighborhoods.
And it's also state inefficiencies. Build a new hospital, it's still not fully functional 8 years later? Okay, there's a problem there, but is anybody addressing it? No, and that is a state problem.
Carol, you also brought up the topic, kind of all related, everything that we've been talking about, kind of winds back together, but you brought up the topic of homelessness.
Yes.
What would the two of you do to try and alleviate that issue? Obviously, there are some homeless encampments in your district.
Yes. Well, I think what Ikaika brought up, the CORE program, is a good step in the right direction. Right? Working at the legislature, I can't tell you, just about every morning driving in, there was someone who had no place to go, who was taken to Queens Emergency, given some kind of treatment, and were sitting under the tree, sleeping in their hospital gown with maybe something in their hand, maybe a towel or something that was given to them, and then just basically released from the hospital with nowhere to go, right? So there's obviously a need. I have a friend whose father was mentally ill, living on the streets. The whole family tried to get him some help, but because he said, no, I don't want any, instead he lived on the streets, and there was nothing they could do because he didn't pose a danger to anyone, but they couldn't help him, and they couldn't get anyone to legally get him help. So those are things that the legislature can do something about, right? Those are laws that we pass. And also something that I've noticed around the Capitol is that many of the folks, maybe the last 4 or 5 years, are not local folks. They're folks from the mainland that have come here. And either they came here to do something and it didn't work out, or the cost of living was more than they expected and they ended up on the streets. But I've been surprised at watching that shift in the last 15 years from almost all local folk to none.
Ikaika, I want to give you a chance to give your take on the issue of homelessness.
A few months ago, when I had some friends visiting from Lahaina, we got together at Ala Moana Hotel to talk story about kind of the experience of going through the Lahaina crisis. And that night, I walked home from Ala Moana Hotel to Kalihi Valley. I know, I wouldn't recommend it for everybody, but what I saw that night scared the heck out of me. It really bothered me because what I saw was a couple of dozen houseless folks, and they were primarily older women, local women. And that really concerns me, that this is really the state of our Hawaii right now, is we are not taking care of our people. I had the opportunity to spend a little bit of time, just a little bit of time with Twinkle Borge, who recently passed away. Yeah. And I think the Pu'uhonua Waianae, their entire philosophy is really instructive because it's an approach that centers the self-determination of the houseless individuals, and it also does it by, with the goal of providing permanent housing, not transitional housing, not kauhale, and I think the kauhale thing is fine for what it does, but we need to figure out what do people do when they're done living in the kauhale or when they're done in whatever transitional housing is being built and constructed. Our community needs permanent housing. And I just read a study that said that only 10% of the houseless individuals are actually, folks from other places. The vast majority are local families with kids, with jobs, who simply can't afford to live here. And layered on top of that is the cutting of mental health programs and the lack of funding for the direct behavioral and mental health and drug rehab work that we need.
Mm-hmm. And one of the good things about what Twinkle did was there were rules. You had your responsibilities and you have your rules to live in that community. You are part of the community, and giving people that sense of belonging, but also the sense of responsibility. And that's what helps people come to a point where, okay, I have to do this not just for me, not just for my kids, but because we are a community. And we've kind of lost that. And certainly I don't see that in a lot of the state programs. They tend to be that community-based center is missing.
Obviously, the two of you are very passionate about your community and the issues facing your community. If elected, both of you would be freshmen in the legislature. What do you plan to do to make sure your voice is heard and your proposals get seen?
Yeah, I mean, the legislature is not a place for solo effort. It is a team sport, right? It requires coordination and collegiality and a sense that we have a common goal. So what I've been doing is just meeting with as many people as possible. I don't know a lot of those folks, and just going and talking story, developing personal relationships has been really important to me.
And I do know most of them. Not the brand new ones, but most of them. I've been working there since 2011 was my first session. So it is building that relationship. It is starting to talk to people, but it's also finding common ground. So everybody can say, yes, homelessness is an issue. People might have different reasons, different ways to approach that issue. But if you can decide, we all agree this is the issue. We need to get people on the streets, mental health services. Right?
Based on the two of your resumes and own personal life experiences, why should your residents vote for you?
Experience. I've been there, I've done that, written the legislation, read the legislation, walked through it all many, many times. Familiar with my community. I serve in my community, have served in my community.
And Nakaika?
Yeah. I would say experience as well, but the thing that I in particular feel like that I bring is that I have a lot of other experience. Like I worked at the legislature, I worked in the state budget as a member of the finance committee, or I'm sorry, as an analyst for the finance committee. I worked on education policy as the clerk of the education committee. So I understand the Capitol, but I also have run businesses. I sit on a number of nonprofit boards and community boards. I understand what it means to actually be in charge of budgets and to be a fiduciary, so I'm responsible for other people's money. And to me, that's the job. The most important bill we're going to pass in any legislative session is the budget. And if we can't get our minds around that particular piece of, $19 billion, then, at any rate, that is the main thing that we need to think about.
Before we go, I do want to get to one of our viewers from Kalihi, Stan. He's asking, rail is a city project, but the construction continues to affect Kalihi businesses. Anything that you could do to help them? Let either of you chime in.
Yeah. There has been very little state oversight, even though state monies are now going towards the rail. I think there is a place for the state to step in and say, it's a city project, but you're impacting our state. You're taking our tax dollars. You need to be more accountable. But we don't, in general, the state doesn't hold people accountable for money that's given to them.
My sense is that a lot of this is actually going to be settled in the courts, that there will be litigation to address all of the companies in Lower Kalihi that have been hurt, materially by rail.
Before we go, we just have a few minutes, but I want to end on a light note. I want our viewers to get to know the two of you on a personal level. So can you share a little bit about maybe some of your favorite local businesses in your district? Maybe it's a restaurant that you like to frequent. Not a hard-hitting political question, but we just want to, since we talk about small businesses.
So Mitsuba is my fave, has been for forever. Sweet potato crumbles, the best. Anytime I need to go somewhere and impress people, always bring sweet potato crumbles. They're like, wow, this is great. And then on the other side, Gulick. I work early. I often bring Gulick delicatessen food for my coworkers to, when they come in and they're, it's been I'm tired. It's like, food.
Do you have a go-to order?
Oh, the one in my current office that everybody loves is the tempura shrimp musubi.
Sounds good. Kaika, what about for you? Favorite local businesses?
I spend a lot of time at the McDonald's in Kalihi Valley because that's where our people are. Our people hang out at McDonald's. We also go to Campbell. That's where our folks hang out. Yeah.
And, since we're talking about the election, just before we go, voter turnout has been a hot topic here in Hawaii. What would you want to say to the voters, to the younger generation, to get them to submit their ballots?
Your vote matters.
Yeah, I want the younger generation to take over. Absolutely, because frankly, only that generation, my son just turned 18, his generation is the generation that is going to be dealing with the future that we are all leaving for them. Yeah. And I absolutely want them to just vote and to be as loud and as strident a voice as possible, because that's the only way that we're going to change the political conversation.
Yeah, we got to turn the narrative so it's no longer low voter turnout stories. Hopefully, high voter turnouts. Right. Thank you both for joining us tonight. I also want to thank all of our viewers for tuning in and asking questions. Our candidates here in studio: State House District 29, Republican Carol Ka'apu and Democrat Ikaika Hussey. Next week on Insights, we're focusing on the Hawaii County Council. Hear from the candidates for District 5, which represents Puna or covers Puna and portions of Kea'au. Also District 9, which represents Kohala and portions of Waimea. Please join us then. I'm Lauren Day for Insights on PBS Hawaii. Have a great night.
Local broadcasts of Insights on PBS Hawaii are made possible by the support of viewers like you. Mahalo, and by Carl Smith Ball, providing legal services throughout Hawaii and the Pacific since 1857, making a positive difference in the communities where we live.